Al, talking about how to win in League of Legends today. Special thanks to Dyrus, whose VOD inspired this video. I'll link the VOD in the description. And if you think I'm too monotone and want to listen to somebody else, you can go listen to Dyrus. Great guy. A map of League of Legends and the objectives on top of it. So this is what's important in the game. Almost all that matters. We have the structures labeled along with the neutrals on the map. You can see that there's quite a lot going on. We'll only be looking at half of it at a time here in a second. But of course you've got towers up the mid and all the objectives, the neutrals in the middle. So we'll be looking at structures first and the process of dismantling a base and winning the game. Everything is labeled. The outer and inner turrets, of course the outers, the inners, the inhib towers, the inhibs, the nexus towers, and the nexus. These are very important, and how you go about it is important. It's kind of helpful to imagine these outer and inner turrets as shields to the base. They do not regen health. However, everything inside of the base does regen health unless it's killed, with the exception of the inhibitors, which will respawn within 5 minutes after they're destroyed. So, the first step, dismantle the outer turrets. And you can see the yellow pushes up. This is our map control or vision. So what you're going to want to do after you take this outer ring of turrets, or as you're taking them, is to be placing wards. And of course you won't take all three at the same time. You'll take one here, and you may push your wards up to here. You know, you want to pink. Make sure you're controlling the vision as best as you possibly can. Work with your teammates on that, if possible. Next, you dismantle the inner ring of turrets. And I know this seems simple, but this is important here in a second. So the third step is to obtain sufficient advantage to take inhibitor towers. The step seems kind of odd and out of place, but it's very important. You'll often find that taking these towers and breaking the base is much more difficult than taking these outer turrets, which are less fortified and also don't have the walls protecting them. But after you do that, you'll take the inhibitor towers, and at this point the game's pretty much over. Very, very low percentage, like 1% of games come back after being 3 inhibbed, and as you can see, their zone of control here is so small, and they're so far zoned from any objective or any gold, any neutrals, anything else on the map. You can see why. The only way you lose at this point is if you get wiped with full death timers, 70 seconds, and they're just able to win the game straight off of it without the minions killing the base, which is still highly probable at this point. So then you'll take the Nexus towers and the Nexus, and the game's over. Here's why this is all important. You can see when we overlay the neutrals back on the map that what you control, and excuse my crooked triangle here, what you control is not only the map, you're controlling the objectives on the map, the neutrals. And this is the most important part to taking towers and moving your vision and your map control up, increasing the pressure on your opponents. So as you can see, it moves up. These outer turrets are very important. You can see what this allows you. Entrance into the blue buff, the red buff, all these minor camps. You now control past the river, past the Baron, past Dragon. Very, very important. You can tell the distance between Dragon and Baron increase, so you can ward this. You can load up in these bushes and ambush your opponents, deny vision in the Baron pit. You don't even have to take Baron. Important to note this. You can just as easily bait the Baron and wipe them off of that. And that does exactly what we were talking about a minute ago, where you're trying to get advantage to take these right here. What you need is either items or you need death timers. One of the two or either can be very useful in taking these. And you can see that gaining control over these objectives and pushing further up on the map allows you to get this. Because if you're baiting Baron, you're either taking Baron or you're killing people off of baiting Baron. And that gives you the death timers or the gold or the empowered minions to push into the base and finally break their base. Again, you can see pushing the inners, you only gain more room, more time to do objectives, and these wards up in this area will provide you with a lot more response time to any threats to you further away on the map. Same thing, pushing them further away from objectives and denying them gold. It's important to remember that all of these neutrals are gold. Both teams get minions pushing to them, but not both teams can take all the neutrals within the jungle. This is very important, especially the buffs, Baron, and Dragon. So I'd like to go over for just a second, now that we've covered the pushing of the game, into the different neutrals and why they're important. First of all, minor camps, you can see they're all the stars on the map here. They spawn at 1 minute 40 and will respawn at 1 minute 40 after that, or after they're killed, rather. Red buff, also spawning at 140, has a 5-minute respawn time. Blue buff does this as well. Red buff gives you a true damage DOT on hit, and also slows with that. And not many people know, I was surprised to learn, that red buff gives you a 1% max health regen per 5 seconds. The buff will last for 2 minutes without the jungle buff duration. Mastery. Blue buff, just like I said, like red buff, will spawn at 1 minute 40 and will spawn every 5 minutes after it's killed. It provides mana and energy regen, depending on the champion, 10% cooldown reduction, and also gives you 2 AP per level, so that's anywhere from 2 to 36 AP. The buff will last for 2 minutes, just like red buff. Spawning just a little later than the minor camps and the buffs will be the rift crabs, or rift scuttles. They spawn at 2:30 and respawn 3 minutes after they're killed. They provide vision. You can see I've marked where the vision will be located. All of the crabs do travel up and down the river until they're killed. They provide vision outside Baron and Dragon Pit, depending on which one you kill. And traveling through this area will provide you with move speed. The duration of these zones will last 1 minute and 15 seconds, leaving 145 after they despawn until the crabs respawn. Moving into the high priority neutrals here, we have Dragon spawning at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. After it's killed, it will take 6 minutes to respawn. The first Dragon buff will provide 6% AD and AP, and this is often one of the most important ones, especially given the effort taken. You only need to kill one to get this. Recently they've changed the 2 and 4 Dragon buffs. The second one now provides a burn to towers, much like red buff does, or Gangplank's passive. The third one will provide you with 5% movement speed, and number 4 gives you a damage reduction from enemy turrets. This can be very useful for diving, like I said, gaining the advantage into the base. There you go, there's another one right there. Number 5 is a 3-minute buff that will double 1 through 4, so all of these are doubled, 12% ADAP, you get the idea. It also provides a burn on any damage dealt to enemy champions that is quite significant, and if you see this buff and red people running at you, you are in trouble. This buff lasts for 3 minutes, and it's a very rough time to fight off. It is possible, but if they've got Baron and Dragon at the same time, it does not look good. Rift Herald, which is a fairly new neutral, is in the Baron Pit, spawns at 4 minutes, respawns 5 minutes after death. The buff, which drops an eye, which you'll have to walk over to pick up, and anyone on your team can do that. It will provide a 10% damage increase while you have it, 40 movement speed. It will also buff nearby minions and empower your recall. This has kind of an interesting mechanic in that it despawns at 19 minutes and 45 seconds. However, if it's in combat, it will take 1955 as its despawn timer. And the buff itself lasts for 3 minutes. So slightly longer than red and blue buff, but the same time as the Dragon 5 buff. And perhaps debatably the most important next to 5 Dragon, the most important buff being Baron. It spawns at 20 minutes, like I said, after the Rift Herald despawns. It will respawn every 7 minutes after it's killed. So it's important to remember the timers, especially on the buffs. 5 minutes, Dragon is 6 minutes, and Baron is 7 minutes. So 1 minute up from kind of in order of importance there. Baron buff will give you, depending on the level, 40 AP and AD, an empowered recall, and buff to nearby minions. This is applied to all living teammates when the Baron is killed, and the buff lasts for 3 minutes. Last but not least, some more kind of important pertinent information would be that the minions spawn at 1:15, so that is 25 seconds earlier than the camp spawn, but they do have to travel to lane, so that's how leash timing works out. And the waves spawn every 30 seconds after the last wave is spawned. So last but not least, summoner spells. We have Barrier, Cleanse, Exhaust, Ghost, and Ignite over on the right side here. These are grouped together because they all have a 3-minute and 30-second cooldown. Heal is slightly longer at 4 minutes, and Flash and Teleport are our longest at 6 minutes. It's important to know, if you haven't kept up with the patch notes, that Teleport cooldown is no longer reduced on towers, which did provide cooldown reduction previous to this season. And it's also important to know that these cooldowns can be shorter given there's a Mastery, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, and the Distortion enchant for boots can provide Summoner CDR. The max being 25% for all but Ghost, Flash, and Teleport, which can be 40%, and this is because the Distortion enchant on the boots only applies to those 3 summoners. So I'd like to thank you. This is all I have for you today. Please like or comment with any criticism or questions. I'd be more than happy to help with. I hope that you've learned something. I know I certainly did making this video, and I hope you all have a good day. Thanks.